What's up, Internet? You're tuned in to episode 53 of the FlipScreen Games podcast, and I'll tell you what, from the jump, it's a very, very special episode. It is our 1-year anniversary here at FlipScreen Games, and on the FlipScreen Games podcast, we are so excited to dive into this special anniversary episode with all of you. Of course, I am your host, Mr. Pete and Bessie, joined, as always, by my co-host, Mr. Steven Radford.
Hello.
And of course, this is the FlipScreen Games podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm excited about this episode, Steve. I was gonna say it's been a long time coming, but really it's only been a year in the works, right? But these days, years feel so much longer, right?
Yeah, longer and shorter, because I remember putting that website live this time last year. I was on holiday then as well, and it was just like,
I was busting your balls about that on Nintendo Noise this week.
You were panicking. You were like, you were talking about Nintendo Noise? What did you say? I haven't listened to it yet.
I think I said it on Nintendo Noise. I definitely said it to a friend of mine where I was like, this fucking guy, right? He's got perfect timing. It's like, that's the 1 week they let you take a holiday in the UK is the week we launched the website, and then our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's because my sister's a teacher, so it's like the first week of the school holidays is like the first time that she can come away with us. So that's like the time we always go on holiday every year. So probably this time next year, for our 2-year anniversary, I will probably be on holiday.
You're killing
somewhere.
me. You gotta ask.
Really timed this horrendously.
I'm reaching out to your dad because I can't trust you to do it. I'm gonna be like, Andy, I need you to throw me a bone. Can y'all take a vacation the second week of summer holiday? Is that an option? This guy leaves me high and dry every year on the anniversary.
Hey, I'm here. We made it. We're recording on a Saturday 2 days later than we usually do, but I'm here.
We're here.
And I can't believe it's been a year, and I can't believe the amount of stuff we did in a year, because I was like, episode 52 should be the year, right? But obviously we did an extra episode for the annual at Christmas.
Yep.
Which then skewed Nintendo Noise being like a number or two behind, and we've done like an extra episode here or there for like the streams and stuff, and it
literally drives me insane because the whole reason I wanted to do the annual episode, so for those of you who don't know, right, like annual is a thing in comic books, or it'll be like, or it used to be anyway, it's not as common anymore, but you'd get like one special extra long issue that was like not in the regular number, and it was just like, oh, this is like the annual, you get a fun little side story. So I was like, oh, this will be a cute way to do an end of the year episode, and it won't fuck up the numbering, and they'll still be, and I don't even remember what we did, but I remember coming back and being, wait, this actually fucked up the numbering. What happened?
Yeah, it did, because we didn't do a Nintendo Noise that week.
But we did a regular flip screen and the annual.
We did a regular flip screen and the annual.
So we've done two extra episodes of this show.
Yeah, because Nintendo Noise is like one behind. But, who cares? Really, what we should have done was the annual should be this episode, because it's like annually we could have done a whole year of flip screen, and in hindsight that would have made a lot more sense.
Definitely,
looking back on the previous year. But it's a learning process.
Yeah, well, I think at some point, honestly, because I'm anal, is we're gonna have to do okay, this was volume 1, and then we start over so I can refresh the number. No legacy numbers. But we'll have to figure that out for next year's show. But speaking of this year's show, we have a very special show for you planned here for the 1 year anniversary. If you are a longtime fan, I think it'll be a fun one. We are going to talk about some of our favorite moments from the last year of the show. We're going to talk about some of the names that we didn't use before we decided on flip screen, and show off some of the art that we made, some of the logos that we were playing around with. We're going to look back on some of our favorite episodes. We're going to hear from some of you in the community. It's going to be a good time. So I'm looking forward to reminiscing a little bit. It's going to be a bit of a victory lap episode for you. So a little light on the gaming news, but very heavy on the flip screen community conversation. So if this is your first time tuning in, go listen to last week's show, all right? And we'll see you next week for a normal one. But I'm very, very, before we get into all of that, thank you so much for a year here at FlipScreen Games. It's been a really good time, and we're going to wax poetic about it a lot this show, I imagine. But up at the top, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of what we're doing here. We really appreciate you.
Oh
And
yeah, 100%. Like I remember us like leaving or planning on like leaving FlipScreen, not FlipScreen, planning on leaving LootPots, right, to do FlipScreen. And it was like, are people even going to follow us? Are they there not for us, but because it's LootPots? And everyone came over in droves. It was really nice to see, and we've picked up a bunch more people along the way in the community. And we just couldn't do it without everyone. And it's amazing. It's really, really humbling. And it's lovely.
absolutely, and like I've been making stuff on the internet for a long time, and I've never had a community that I felt like gave a shit about what I thought as much as this one, and that's not to decry, the other organizations I've been a part of, especially the folks at the Comics Pals and everything. I was there for 6 years. But y'all are very, very, you're here, you're with it. You show up for every single thing that we do, and you reach out to ask our opinions about stuff we haven't talked about, and it's humbling. It really is, that y'all are here and you continue to show up for us. So thank you so much, truly. Thanks for being a part of it, and looking forward to 53 more of these bad boys. So, speaking of people that we're thankful for, we couldn't do it without our fabulous Patreon supporters, the most of which, of course, being our Patreon producers for the month of August. They are, of course, Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, a.k.a. Sobe, Mary Berry, Smilky Shake, Wakahula, and Zaid Ida. And a special thank you to all of you who have been Patreon producers from the very beginning, of which there are many of you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your continued support of this fine program. Of course, I don't feel like I need to do a heavy plug section here, right? If you're tuned into this one, you're a real-ass fan. But if you need to find our stuff wherever it is, FlipScreen.games, join the Discord, come be a part of the community, tune into a live stream. Speaking of which, if you're listening to this the day it goes live, we have a very special event for you tomorrow. Because, of course, if you're not aware, today, when this goes live on Monday, is the day before our 1 year anniversary, of course. August 9th is FlipScreen Day, we'll call it. So what we decided we're going to be doing to celebrate FlipScreen Day is we're going to be doing a very special live stream Tuesday, the 9th, and we're going to be going for a couple hours at least. We'll probably start about 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to be doing a live streamed episode of Nintendo Noise with Chewy and Sierra. We're going to be having a special announcements video with some news about year 2 at FlipScreen Games and some of the changes that are coming to the channel and some of the shows. And then we're going to do some streams after that. We'll be playing some stuff. We'll be opening some packages. Yes. Zaid, Doc, I know. I saw your messages in the Discord. We're going to open the Shin Megami Tensei 5 Collector's Edition that's over here behind me that Zaid gave me as a wedding present. We're going to be opening up Doc's Joy-Cons that he sent me forever ago that have a little message inside. Who knows? It's going to be a good time. So if you want to come, check out all that stuff, celebrate 1 year of FlipScreen Games, get a live episode of the show, and be there with us when we stream some games, maybe some Mario Kart, maybe some Mario Party. If there's any games you want us to play, definitely let us know. But however, whatever we end up doing there, I hope you'll come and celebrate with us. I hope you'll come be a part of the live stream. I think it's going to be a really good time and a fun way to kick off year 2 of FlipScreen Games. So thank you again for being a part of it, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. But for today, we've got a lot to talk about. So, Steve, I want to ask you, we've got a couple things here on the old docket. Where do you want to start? Like, where do you think is the best place to start?
I don't know. So I feel like we should probably give some like context behind how we came to the name FlipScreen and where it came from in the first place. Like we were talking about it for a while, right? Because the one of the main driving forces behind doing our own thing was LootPots was very much like a Nintendo brand. And we'd slowly been eroding at that as like the next gen consoles came out, but
yeah,
it very much was like a Nintendo fan site, and we wanted to get away from that and be able to have like our own brand that we owned, that we could then put whatever content we wanted out. That we could do the Nintendo show, which became Nintendo Noise. I can't remember what other names we had for Nintendo Noise. I feel like we settled on that one pretty quickly.
I'm pretty sure that one we came up with like the first time we sat down to talk about it, because I remember we had been going back, because like you said, so we had worked at Loot Pots together for what, 2 years maybe?
It was like 2 years at that point, yeah. Because it was like January 2021, I think, was when we really started like putting plans in place. Like, right, let's figure out what we would need to do in order to make this a thing.
Because we had discussed it prior to that, but I think we kept coming, because like, you know, and if you've listened to the launch episode and everything, you've heard these stories and everything, so we won't revisit them. But the long and short of it was that, you know, Pixelpar, the founder of Loot Pots, was kind of transitioning out of doing content stuff, and there was like a lot of kind of like uncertainty about what the future of Loot Pots looked like at the time. So for a while we were kind of like going back and forth, like, do we start our own thing? Do we talk to Pixel about like taking over Loot Pots? Like, there was a lot of kind of debate there about, you know, what was the thing that made the most sense, and, you know, what did we all want to do moving forward? And when we finally decided that it was time, it took us 6 months maybe to get everything together, between deciding on the name, then coming up with the branding and figuring out what the shows were going to be, and then, you know, reaching out to talk to Chewy about it and everything, getting advice from some of our friends in the space like AJ over at Redirect. So there was a lot of legwork before we even got to the point of coming up with the names and everything. But I remember Nintendo Noise being pretty quick, because we knew we wanted a Nintendo podcast, and we're like, okay, like, would love for it to have some alliteration. What's another word that starts with N that sounds cool? And I remember I was just literally going through a list on like dictionary.com or something, and I was like, Nintendo Noise, that sounds good. And you came up with that logo like 2 days later, I think, and it was like, that was the only logo that we didn't iterate on either. I was just like, that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Yeah. That slaps.
We did have some like placeholder icons. Like, I knew I wanted like the background to be like iconography and stuff, but I'm not an illustrator or an artist in any way. Like, the logo, it was fairly simple for me to come up with. Like, we had that idea in our head. I was just like, yeah, Noise. Like, I was like, I want it to be like grungy, like you know,
fuzzy,
staticky, kind of fuzzy looking, which obviously we got. But then Ray from the community put together like the custom artwork that we've got, which is all the Nintendo iconography that's in the background of the artwork for Nintendo Noise, and it couldn't have been more perfect. So thank you again, Ray, for putting that together. But yeah, Nintendo Noise, I think we had come to the conclusion we wanted Nintendo in the name, because that was one of the issues with the Potscast was no one knows what that is. But, you know,
that was an SEO nightmare.
It was horrendous. It was like, why would I listen to a podcast about pots? Like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, so that was hell. So that's why we came up with Nintendo Noise. And you know, maybe in hindsight, FlipScreen doesn't really describe what the podcast is, but you know, FlipScreen games, I think, you know, you know, it's about games in some way.
Well, and that's part of the problem too, right? Like, spoiler alert, FlipScreen was not the first name that we agreed on.
No, it was not.
Right? Like, we tried several that didn't come to fruition. So it's just a sum of the names that we didn't use. We've got a list. We ended up going through a lot more than this. If we rattled off every name we considered, it would probably be like a 20-30 minute segment.
Yeah, this was like the short list, and like a couple of these we came so close. I registered a domain for one of them, and we were about to get it, but we couldn't get a Twitch. I think it was a Twitch, or maybe there was an old podcast, something
like that. One of them used, and that was the problem with a couple of them. Was there was like abandoned podcasts or whatever that had the name, and we're like, okay, well, we don't want to, like, you know, because it's like, okay, like, even if they never go live again, if they have a Twitch channel that has the name we want to use, like, that's going to create confusion, right? And like, just whatever. So we were trying to have something that was clean and fresh, and that there wouldn't be any competition for. So there was a couple, like, because we knew we wanted the name to have some kind of play on the idea of there being like two of us from like different places, and like that was something we were trying to think of for a while. So one of the ones that we thought of was Cross Region, right? And we're like, okay, like that's That makes sense, right? Like, like the whole like region lock thing. Region lock was already a show. Multiple shows actually, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, cross region we thought would be a good one, but there was competition there. We thought about the coin club.
Oh yeah, coin was a big thing, like because that became like the Patreon tiers as well. That we were looking at the coins because we were like thinking of like coin sound effects and things that we could use.
But
for,
then we
like,
were
various
like,
different games and stuff.
But then we were like,
It's like, but this doesn't sound like anything to do with games. It's like just to do with coins.
And we thought people were gonna think it was a cryptocurrency thing too.
Yes.
And we were like, fuck that. Like, never mind. That's no good. Because when I think coin, I think Mario, right? Or like, coin op, like you're pumping them into an arcade machine.
It was like, it could have easily been a crypto thing, like NFTs and shit. Like,
and it was like right when all of that was really starting to pop off, and we're like, no. This will create confusion. This is no good. This is no good. I think the one that we were the most serious about was you know what though, there is another coin one. We had coin flip. That was coin flip and coin flip podcast, and that was what ended up becoming FlipScreen eventually. Like I think that was one of the last ones we were thinking about.
Well, we then looked through like a list of video game terms.
And like
FlipScreen was one of the only on that list that didn't have a podcast or anything related to it.
And it worked for what we were thinking of, right? Like the idea of like we're like, oh, like flipping between screens or something like that feels like tangentially related to the thing we were trying to do anyway. And eventually it just became a like, this sounds good and nobody else has it, so I like this,
Yeah, and it was free on like Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and Twitch and everything that we needed.
Except for that, we found there's a piece of mechanical equipment called a flip screen.
There is called the flip screen
that people use for tumbling rocks to like find stuff. Which we're like,
really bizarre. Yeah,
like we can compete with that one because we got games in the name, so it's different.
Yeah, and then we got the domain flipscreen.games, and I was really, really happy with that.
Yeah,
really happy with the domain.
So speaking of domains, the one that we almost went with that we couldn't get was originally it was Cable Club, which if you're an old school Pokemon fan, right? That was the name of the place you would go.
The domain I registered. It was the Cable Club.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was where you would go to do the link cable stuff. And we're like, oh, that's great, right? Like it's about multiplayer, like it's got the Nintendo angle, like love it. And that was the one where Steve was like, I love it, jumped the gun, bought a domain before we figured out if we could lock everything else down. And there was like a Discord community and an abandoned Twitch channel basically. And we like reached out.
I even reached out to to see if we could like take ownership of it, but we never heard back. So it's just
we did. We made them an offer. We were like, hey, like we want to buy the name from you. We want to use it. And they were like, oh well, like how much? And we're like, oh, I don't, and we made an offer.
We don't have any money.
And then but like we made an offer, and then like they didn't counter offer or anything. They're like, nah, never mind, we're not interested. And I was like, okay, like well, we could have a dialogue. And they're like, no. And I was like, all right, okay, no worries, that's cool. Which is
there was another one I really, really liked that you were dead against.
Yeah, which was
NTSC Pals, because you thought it was too similar to the comics Pals and you didn't like that.
I also don't like the NTSC was just like that does not roll off the tongue either.
Yeah, but I fucking loved the concept because it was like the NTSC region and the PAL region.
Yeah,
and so it was like that play on words. There was like NTSC Pals, but yeah, I understand why you didn't want to go for it. And then we had like ABXY because it could have been ABXY for Nintendo and then ABXY for like Xbox, and we would have had
that was so oversaturated.
Different artwork. It was ridiculous. So it was just like, there's no way we're getting that. So we landed on FlipScreen, but we must have had like 4 or 5 like 2-hour long meetings where we're just like going through lists of names and like trying to shortlist them.
We've
got like back and forth conversations in Twitter DMs and Discord and like, okay, have you got any other ideas? Because like we're close to getting it, but then this Twitter exists, or like we've researched and this podcast exists, and it was really disheartening to like come up with this really awesome name that you were like super excited about. And then you find out someone else has got it before you. Like coming up with names is the most ridiculous thing.
Naming things is the hardest part of any process, and especially like the more like we're lucky that we're only 2 people, because the more people you have in a group, the more it's like, oh, like 4 out of 5 people like this one, or 3 out of 4 people like this. And it's like, well, we don't want to force the other person to have a name they fucking hate, but like, how do you get a number of people to agree on an idea like that? It's not easy. And especially when you think about how many, like in this space, right? Like it's so oversaturated. There's so many gaming podcasts and so many that come up and they do 5 episodes and then they realize it's a lot of work and they don't do anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, like it's a lot. It was a lot. That's always the thing that I feel like takes the longest amount of time, you know?
Yeah. I mean, well, we came up with all of that, right? And this was before Chewy was on board. And we came up with the name for Nintendo Noise and we put together the artwork. And
yeah,
then
we came to
and
Chewy with all the work done and we're like,
all.
here you go. Here's a pitch. Would you like to come do this with us? And he was excited
and he was like, yeah. Yeah. He was like, yeah, that sounds great. When are we doing it? And,
yeah.
It was really good to have him on board.
God bless
it was nice. It made it seem less daunting, right? To have someone else and like have the backing. And I remember we went to some of the patrons that from the Loot Pot side, and we're just like, hey, this is what we're planning on doing. Like I know we reached out to Doc at least.
And Asobi, I think knew
as well. And Asobi,
yeah. Oh, and Mango knew as well. I think.
Yeah, Mango knew as well.
Oh, you know,
yeah.
and Zayd, I think we talked to a couple of the people that were like the most activated because we were kind of like, we're gonna do this. Like, do you have any feedback for us? Like, what would you like to see us do? And you know, some of them are mods in the community and everything, and they were made mods before we went live. And you know, so shout out to all of you for not blowing up our spot. Thanks for keeping the secret. Thank you to everyone. And huge thank you to all.
We had a whole other Discord server at one point. Do you remember? Like,
yeah, because we weren't
created,
sure.
like everything because we weren't sure if we were going to be able to convert the Loot Pots Discord over to the FlipScreen Discord. And thankfully, Pixelpar was gracious enough to let us take ownership of that and the Potscast YouTube channel. Yeah. So it wasn't like we were starting at ground zero, which was great. We didn't have to build that community again.
Yeah, shout out. I mean, shout out to all of you there, right? Like, definitely big ups to Pixelpar because that was something we were worried about. Was just that it was not going to be, you know, amicable, and he was super supportive of us and was very, very, obviously it was a bummer to see that era end, but I think we all knew it was time to move on, and he was super supportive of all of that. And, you know, I definitely thank him for creating Loot Pots because we wouldn't have met each other otherwise. You know, we would have never gotten here if it wasn't for him and that website and everything that we did there, which I look back on really fondly. So, yeah, big thanks to him. And, you know, big thank you to, again, Mango and Zayd and Doc and Asobi and everybody who, helped us kind of set the groundwork for this to be a successful relaunch, and you know, all the folks who helped behind the scenes, and you know, Chewy for agreeing to come on and do it with us. And like you said, he was just a down ass motherfucker. We're like, all right, this is what we're thinking. Do you have any interest? And he's like, yeah. When do we start? We doing it tomorrow? Like, let's go.
Yeah, it was
like,
awesome.
Hell yeah, brother. You know, and and thanks to, you know, all of you in the community, all the patrons, everybody who's come and guested on the show, like Sierra, who always comes and helps us out, and, you know, Richard and Ten Mouse, and
Chris from
Switch Weekly, who's always fun to catch up. Like those are some of my favorite episodes. And Max, yeah, of course, you know, who we've known since the Loot Pots days and everything.
And the crew over at Redirect.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, huge thanks to Parker and AJ. And AJ gave us a lot of advice before we relaunched and everything, and like looked at all of our documents and gave us feedback and a lot of really, really helpful stuff. So, it's never lost on me how great and supportive this community is, and the friends that we've made through making content and everything. And yeah, it really means a lot. It means a lot to have that support. And I know that, you know, we're a small channel and a small community, but I often don't feel that way, you know, because you're all so active and die hard, and, you know, like there's always the same folks coming to all the events, and like you guys really show up for stuff, and it means a lot to me to feel like I can push live on Twitch and know that y'all are going to show up and we're going to have a good time, you know. It really, really does mean the world. So while we're on the names thing, we also had a fun journey once we decided on the name, was then coming up with the art. And we had a lot of different kind of things that we tried and thought about. And I wanted to show some of them off. We don't have everything. There's a lot of files that we just weren't able to track down. But I did pull up a couple here. that you'll be able to see. And Steve, I sent these all to you, so you'll just have to look at them on your own. But
Yeah. Yeah, these were your concepts, right? And I don't remember a lot of these, so I don't know if you sent them all to me.
I sent you a couple of them because there was a bunch where like
Yeah.
I came up with like layouts and then we were doing them in different colors because I was trying to experiment with fonts and colors before you went and did the original mock-up, just to like give you some ideas. So like the first one I have pulled up here is the one that's got kind of like the old school Microsoft thing where it's the lines going through it, you know?
Yes.
That was one where like I liked the idea of having like something that felt kind of retro and like that had a little bit of that like early internet tech kind of vibe to it. Because Lord knows that that's an aesthetic I really respond to. And I think that kind of idea, you see that in some of the other ones that we worked on. Like, so these are some color variations. I had the one that was like it was like the Burger Time font almost, and I had that in the orange, the pink, and the red. Those are some of the color combinations we thought about before we landed on the yellow. Is like we thought originally we were going to go with orange and white, but we ended up.
Well, yeah, but you thought orange and white. I thought blue and pink, which was like one of the other variations that you have, right?
Yeah,
you have that like blue and pink.
That's my
aesthetic.
favorite one. It's the Burger Time font, but it's blue and pink, and it's got scan lines, and like I loved that aesthetic. I really liked that one. But we ended up going in a different direction there. But yeah,
I've found some more actually.
Oh yeah,
sending them to you now.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm on a different computer. Yeah.
Can you send them to me on Twitter so I can pull them up? If they're on
Sure.
Discord, I won't be able to open it without messing up our screen. But yeah, we tried with like the pink and the white, the red and white, the orange, and there was like the blue. There was a couple different options there that we liked, but I don't actually remember how we landed on the yellow because I love yellow, and I remember pushing for the idea of yellow, but I didn't love it with the font. It wasn't until you did the logo that I really felt like it.
So yellow. So we went with yellow because it was like the only thing that wasn't really associated with another brand, I think. So it was like, oh, we don't want blue because that could be PlayStation. We don't want green because that could be Xbox. Red is like to Nintendo.
Right.
And it was just like, okay, where do we go then? And like, I think we had orange as a concept. Like I'd come up with a couple of things in orange that I really liked. And I don't think you like orange.
No, I love orange.
Okay. Well, I don't know how we ended up specifically on yellow, but I'm glad we did because I really like the yellow.
It's interesting because I'm really not sure.
Because I was dead set on like this like blue with pink.
Oh yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me pull these up. Let me see if I can just like drag this over. Maybe you guys will be able to see it.
I loved the blue and the pink. And then we had like a concept of like it could be FlipScreen games, and then we could do like another like type of brand because we were like talking about doing a show called 92 Classic before, which
that was
never ended up happening.
Well,
and that was going to be like our lifestyle show.
Yeah, and it was going to be like it was essentially going to be one more thing, but with like more segments. And
yeah, absolutely planning.
Yeah, and like have it be less like, oh, here's like a random thing we're discussing, and it was gonna be a little bit more focused, but yeah, that never quite came together. But yeah, here, you know what? I'll just put it like this rather than trying to full screen it because you can see it just fine. So yeah, you can see here, these are some of the other designs that Steve had in mind. Like I liked this one. There was like the backward F was something we were thinking about for a while before we landed on the upside down I.
Yeah, it was quite difficult to read, I think, the backwards F. So that's why I didn't really like it.
That was why we ended up with the I, because we thought that made sense. You could easily understand it, but also like there was some fun to be had with like animating it and like flipping it and stuff like that.
I'd really still like to animate it at some point. We just haven't got around to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it one day. But yeah, this was one of the main designs we were looking at for a while, was this kind of like pink with the dark blue. It was like a light pink with the deep navy. And we had some ideas, like we were thinking about like, oh, like you could use the upside down I as their logo, but it's also an exclamation point, which is cool.
Yeah.
That was something we were going to really lean into.
But then I saw like what Fanbyte did on like with like their little mascot. And I
Yeah.
really loved their little mascot that they
It's like a
had that they were just able
vampire.
to use. It's like their little
Little
vampire.
teeth.
And I was like, I want our own mascot. And that's when we came up with like the TV. But like the TV took a while as well and a lot of iterations. Like there was a version with like the exclamation mark on the screen. And then we did a version with like the smiley face on the screen with like it's too much detail on it, but it didn't have the rabbit ears. And it wasn't until we put the rabbit ears on it that I think it really got the
Yeah.
personality that I really like from it.
And it's funny because you can look at, I'm looking at the last blue one that you sent, and there's like the exclamation point eye in the corner instead of the screen and everything. And like you can see there's like the dots from the yellow, like that was like an earlier version of it and everything. Yeah, so that there was a lot of iteration there, and then you can look at this one. This is where we started to get into like the look that you know now today, right? And there was a couple different versions, like the pink and white. I really liked. I think that was like
I loved the pink
that
as
was
well,
like a
yeah.
really high contender for us. We almost went with that one. But I think
I
like
think that was the number one, and then I don't know how we ended up on yellow and black. I really don't, but I think it was just
I
so
think it was because you said it
striking.
was bold. It was really striking. Yellow is like a really eye catching color, and like nobody else really was using that in this space. So it made it stand out. This one I did not like. The mint green.
Yeah, it was hideous, wasn't it? Right,
So bad. I
really
was like
bad.
immediately no on this one. There was like the like sky blue. I liked the more like the one I used in the flip screen one. Where it was light blue, but not like sky blue. It was like a little softer. The purple one I liked too, though. I remember that was a good one. It was like the pink and the purple, but
Yeah, I didn't like the purple. I don't like lilac as a color. I think it's horrible.
and you had like the more maroon ones. This one I
But the
liked
maroon
too.
one we used for one more thing.
Yeah,
We
that's
ended up
true.
using that maroon for one more thing.
I liked the pink with the light blue as well. Like that was cool. One of these maybe will break out, right? Maybe one day we'll do a refresh and we'll be like, here you go, here's the new fresh colors.
If we do, I want the pink and the blue. That's still my favorite of the iterations that we didn't go with. But yeah, I liked it. The TV, the difference in the TV is really strange to me.
Yeah, I'm
Imagine
pulling
seeing
that
it.
up now and like it looks so odd. Like I remember being like, oh, like the first one with the no rabbit ears, like he was like real chunky too, and like he had like
Yeah.
the big ass buttons on the bottom, and
It,
then
he doesn't have the buttons anymore, does he? But he's got yeah, he does have the buttons. The
There-
only thing I added was the speaker in the middle, which like
yeah.
offset it.
Well, and they're smaller too, I think.
And he's also more rounded. He
Yeah.
got way more rounded.
He looked way more boxy.
Yeah.
And then there was this one before, like when you were like not totally sure if you wanted to commit to that, where it was like the exclamation point instead, which I am having trouble.
Yeah, see, I like the exclamation point. I still like it in our logo, but I think it stands alone. And the TV is definitely the best one, I think.
I like it. It adds personality, I think. But we got to work him into the layout for the podcast. I realize he's not on the screen.
He's not on there?
No,
Yeah, we'll get him on there at some point.
Get
You
him on
know,
there.
everyone knows him though.
I think we gotta get like a little GIF, you know. So he's kind of sitting there, and every once in a while he like winks or something, you know. Just play him on a loop.
Stinks his tongue out.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, we you can see, right? There's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes. So I'll tell you this: whenever we say we're gonna do something and it doesn't get done, that's why, because it takes a long time to do stuff. Like I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
There's been multiple ideas that we've had, like you said, like 92 Classic and stuff like that never came to fruition. And I don't want to talk about any of the other ones because some of them might happen at some point.
Yes.
So I don't want to like spoil ideas, but you know, we've developed probably, I'd say between 3 to 5 shows or like side products or something that never saw the light of day. And there's still a lot of work that was done on them, and they just, you know, they didn't come together for one reason or another. So yeah, that's, you know, whatever it takes us a while to get to something, we're busy, you know, we're always doing stuff behind the scenes and trying to come up with new ways to iterate and make things better.
Yeah, I mean, if this was like our full-time gig, I think maybe some more of those would have seen the light of day already. But
Absolutely. You kidding me?
it's just
Yeah.
you just got to prioritize as to what makes most sense. And I think we knew we wanted to launch with a Nintendo show because that's obviously what we were known for over at Loot Pots. But we wanted the flexibility and the freedom to talk about other stuff and the concept of, well, we don't have to talk about the news every week because the Potscast was the sister show of a news website, and it was the concept was we talk about the articles that we've written that week, and we kind of talk about the news and then what we're playing as well, and then that gives us a chance to plug any of the reviews we've done on the website, and we can like have this extra multimedia piece that we can talk about when we're talking to publishers and things. But we wanted to get away from it being a constant news show, and I think some of our favorite episodes, like looking at the list you've put together, some of them are not news. Like the majority of them are just like episodes that we did that are evergreen topics. Like you've got the silly debates and things like what counts as DLC, remake versus remaster, what counts as
Yeah.
retro.
Those are
Like all of that stuff is just evergreen, but they're really fun. Like we can spend like an hour talking about what retro means and land on something that no one agrees with. But it's like 12 years, I think we said it's like
it was a
retro, like
generation and a
a
half.
generation and a half. Yeah.
Which I mean, that was a fun conversation though, like, and those are the debates I really love, like I think I've always that's what brought me to podcasting, right? Is like I just love talking about things that I'm interested in, but I often think the most fun conversations are like, okay, here's a dumb thought exercise, like, and then you ask the question and like really try to meaningfully engage with it, even though it's a stupid fucking debate. I think that's fun. It's fun to me, like not that long ago there was this like viral thing going around Twitter where it was like, oh, like retweet this with 4 movies that you feel like were made for you. And like I love stupid open-ended questions like that of just like what is retro? And it's like, I don't know, let's find out, baby. Like, like let's have a dialogue about it. I think that's a lot of fun. And I think as much as I do also enjoy keeping up with the news of the industry and reacting to it and all that stuff and having a dialogue about what's going on, I do think the evergreen episodes are fun because like they're just like they're low like pressure, right? Like, and I always find things like that to be fun to listen to. Some of my favorite.
They're some of the ones that require most effort, though.
That's true.
Like I remember going into the cheat codes episode, and it was like, right, I've got to do research on trying to remember which cheat codes I liked. And then as we're having a conversation, you're reminding me of things that I hadn't thought about. So like I'm there like typing and Googling on the fly to find out and like remember in a little bit more detail. And like that's some of the stuff like I think if you don't watch the video version, there's always times when one of us is going off and like Googling stuff and you can kind of see us like typing away at the keyboard.
Yeah, and I just they take more effort from us, but I think they're fun because it's like it's very just kind of like, oh well, like there is no answer, right? Like it's not like, oh, like this thing happened, how do you feel about it? And then it's like, well, I feel this way or I feel that way, right? It's good or it's bad, right? Like some of that stuff gets a little binary, and like it's fun when you get to the thing where it's like, oh well, I think this is retro, and I'm like, you think this game is retro? Like that was just such a like, I don't know. It's so dumb, right? But like to me, it very much emulates, I think, the thing that I want out of a podcast, which is feeling like you're, at a bar or sitting at a diner or whatever with a bunch of your buddies, and like you're all just chatting shit, right? Like that's the vibe I always want to cultivate on a podcast that I host. Is like want you to feel like you're hanging out with your buddies and just arguing about video games. And I think we've cultivated that, I think that is the vibe we've established. So what's one of your favorites?
Of the main show, I really loved the VR episode we had with Doc. Because it was nice getting someone else from the audience involved and getting Doc onto the show finally. And I know that he'd always wanted to do a podcast and had never got around to doing it, so it was nice to be able to include him on the show and talk about it. And also,
it was a New Year's resolution, I think,
we learned
right?
a lot. It was, yeah, and we
Yeah.
like learned a lot from him as well because obviously I was new to VR. You kind of fell off it and weren't really invested all that much, and it was nice. It was nice to talk to someone who had that additional knowledge. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was fun. Uh, one of the ones that I always enjoy the predictions episode, but there's
Yeah,
episodes I should say, but there's two that come to mind for me, and I one of them you put on the list, but it was like a two-parter kind of. It was the PlayStation
I
on
liked the second one of
on
those better.
PC, yeah,
Yeah.
because it was like the first week I'm like, nah, that's crazy, Steve. What are you
Yeah,
fucking talking about?
because there's me going like, yeah, they're definitely doubling down on PC. This is what's going to happen. PlayStation's going to start adding more and more of their
And
things in, right?
I stand by the fact that some of the shit you said was totally wrong and out of this world.
Maybe,
But
maybe, but you were like totally wrong. You're like, no, they're not going to do that.
no,
There's
man,
no way.
I was 100% wrong. And literally the next episode was just me making a face on the thumbnail. And it was like Pete was wrong with a big ass arrow. Like, those are a lot of fun. And I think those are the episodes with news that I like the most because there's so much like I think of segments where it'll be like, oh, like, like this trailer came out for this game and it's like, how do we feel about this? And it's like, oh, I'm excited for it. Or like, I don't know, it doesn't, whatever. And like,
And there's so many times where we've like flipped on things, right? Because like I
sure,
remember
sure,
the Elden Ring thing, and like the first
totally.
week I picked up Elden Ring, and I was like, I hated it. I thought it was so difficult. I didn't get it, and nothing had gelled. It hadn't clicked. And then I played it for another week. I'd streamed a bunch of it. I came back the next week, and I was like, this is the best game ever. This is like S tier. Like this is nothing's gonna beat this. This is the pinnacle of video
Yeah.
games. And some of the comments we got on that first one, it was just like, you clearly have never played a Souls game. And it's just like, no, I know I haven't.
That's what
That
we
was the
said.
problem. I picked like the wrong class. I'd like gone in blind. I had no idea what was going on. It was terrible.
It's my favorite when
Uh,
people react, like when people who don't listen to the show on YouTube comment, like, you clearly haven't played a game. And it's like, yes, that's what the segment was about. I've never played this game before. And now I am playing
Yeah.
it. And here are my opinions, right?
yeah,
Like,
we had the same thing, didn't we? On what was the
the
recent
Golden Sun
Nintendo
thing. And he
version of
wasn't
the
even
Golden
right.
Sun one?
He
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not an action RPG. Like, you clearly haven't played it. And I was like, I never said it was an action RPG. I said that Xenoblade was an action RPG and that this could fill a different gap. That was what I said, and I was right about that. So, here's my thing, right? I'm wrong a lot. I say a lot of wrong things in life, okay? And if I'm wrong about something, call me out on it, right? But here's the thing. If you're going to come at me, come correct. Okay, don't tell me I'm wrong when I'm right, because then I will fucking. That's when I'm gonna get upset. All right.
Yes.
But I was saying the episodes like that I always love because it's very exciting. I think to react to major news, right? Like I think about like the Activision Blizzard acquisition news but from Microsoft. That was something where it was like, holy shit, like this came out of nowhere and it's like there wasn't even a whisper of this. We never thought that this was a thing that would happen, and then it just happens, and it's kind of like, hey, like this is one of the biggest news stories that has ever happened in the entire time that I've been covering video games, right? And like it's a thing where like I'll think back like 5-10 years from now when we don't even think about the fact that Activision Blizzard used to not be a part of Xbox. Like I'll be able to think back and be like, oh, like this is where I was when that news dropped, and we jumped on the podcast the next day and talked about it, and like it was still fresh, and it was very much like, what does this mean? Are these games going to be, are they going to stay multi-platform, or is Call of Duty going to be exclusive? Like, what does this mean for all of the controversy there? Like, are they going to bring back Vicarious Visions? Like, having all those conversations is like so exciting while things are happening, and then whether it is that you get proven wrong about something, you change your opinion, or the story just continues to evolve, but like that's like a time capsule episode, right? Like is like, oh, this was when this was fresh hot news, and we the most we could try to do is pick up the pieces. Like that is such a fun, that to me is the most fun thing about reacting to news and doing like what we do with that side of things. Oh, you're muted. What'd you do?
Oh, my bad. I pressed the mute button. It can be difficult though because if the news breaks after we've recorded, Like, because we record on a Thursday and we release on a Monday usually. If the news breaks on a Friday, it's just like, well, I guess we missed that news cycle, which can be a real pain in the
Yeah,
ass. But
that's a bummer.
it is nice when we do manage to hit it though. And like this year, right, there was the first year that we had covered like well, not E3, but Jeff's E3, and it was stressful at times to like because there's very little organization on which presentation is happening when, and there seemed to be new announcements every 2 seconds. But it was nice to be able to hop on Twitch and stream the ones we could, and then have like these podcasts where we like collect all of our thoughts together, like the Microsoft event, like coming off of that, and then going straight into record about it where we had the reactions to the first look at Starfield. We had the reactions to Persona coming to other platforms for the first time.
Hype. What a hype
It was
day.
it was like we were really excited, and I think it's great when you can show that excitement and get it across, and you know you're feeling exactly what everyone else is feeling. Like everyone else that's watched that show, there was definitely something there for everyone. There was, no matter who you were, I think there was a game there that you would play, and there was a lot in that presentation for all of us.
Yeah.
And it's great having different perspectives because the three of us, me, you, and Chewy, all like different types of games. And so, you know, the types of games that you play, like the big JRPGs, the Final Fantasies, I don't care about. And there's stuff that Chewy plays that neither of us really are massively into. And then there's stuff that I play, like I'm playing Bear and Breakfast at the moment. I don't think that's a game for you. Haven't played it now. Like
Really?
it's a management sim. I don't think you're massively going to be into it. I don't think you like stuff where you have to keep on top of the food that's on offer and making sure that people are like within a certain radius of a
I don't
bathroom
know.
and
It's so
stuff like
tough.
that.
It's really
Like,
because like that's something I've always think is really interesting, and I think it's probably part of the fun of listening to our show is that like we have like paths like that, but we often deviate from them, right? Like we were like,
yeah,
I don't want
like
to play
Elden Ring.
or Metroid, right? Like
Yeah.
but it's like you think about it, right? And it's like there are lots of games like that I really do like, but I always think it's interesting when it's like, oh, I don't know if you'll like this one because like you like this kind of game, but you don't like this kind of thing in this kind of game. And it's interesting how we've gotten to a granular place like that was because like we had a whole conversation about that with Xenoblade where I was like, Chewy, do you think I'm gonna like this? And he's like, I really don't know. Like it has a lot of things that you like, but there's a lot of things I could definitely see you being completely turned off by. And
Oh, I was turned off that game, but I listened to Triple Click on the way back from my vacation this week, and Jason described the combat as grindy MMO combat where you just have to get into a specific position and then there's a lot of auto fighting, and I was just like, nope,
yeah,
not a chance. I'm just not going to enjoy that game.
it's so good.
So
It's so good. I love it. But
I'm glad you're having a good time with it.
yeah, I think we all have enough crossover where like there's things that we all like at the same time. You know, we all liked Kirby, right? Like it happens.
Oh yeah, Kirby was great, yeah.
But we've
But
got
it also means like we're all covering different things.
which is good.
Like we're all playing something different.
Yeah.
Because I have zero desire to play the next Final Fantasy, but I know you will.
Oh yeah, baby. Looking forward to that one. It's gonna be the hotness.
Yeah, and we're both going to be playing Starfield when that drops. But like you didn't want to play Forza, and I was big into it, so we were able to cover that. We
Yeah.
had like the
Even Elden Ring, right?
community
Like
club and stuff.
I half-assed got into Elden Ring. I didn't really play it the way that you did, and I was able to like be a second on coverage, but I was certainly not the primary. If we reviewed it, I wouldn't have reviewed it, right? Like, yeah. I think that does work to our advantage for sure. So we got a couple more on our short list here. While we're talking about Chewy, I really liked the gift episode, the Christmas gift guide episode that we did with Chewy. I remember that was like a fun one, and like again, it was just like a fun time of year. Like it was very much like, all right, like it's the end of the first like fiscal year or whatever that we launched FlipScreen, and it felt like an achievement to have gotten there. And we did that, and we did the end of the year episode, and I don't think Chewy had ever been on FlipScreen at that point. I think that was his first appearance. So it was really fun to have him on that show and kind of do something a little different and not be talking about news or what we were playing or anything like that, and just kind of be like, oh, like let's do this like weird evergreen thing of like, hey, here's some stuff to buy for your boo. Like it's a
It
good
was
time.
nice, and like there was so many cool ideas in there that were outside the norm. Because I feel like a lot of those gift guides they be the same every year. It's like get a controller, get this. It was like, oh, what about this really obscure book? That could be really
Yeah.
cool and things like that. The people from the community had written in about. It was really nice to get a bunch of suggestions, and all three of us had like our ideas as well on top of that. It was really nice. It was a really good episode. I did enjoy that one.
Yeah, it was cool. Couple more. I think the Steam Deck episodes have all been really fun, especially like when you first got the Steam Deck. There was a real like electricity in the air of like, oh, like you got this thing that nobody else has, and then like Mango hooked me up with one like 2 weeks later, and it was like, oh shit, all of a sudden we have them, and like they're a
Yeah.
big part of our coverage now. And we're talking about them all the time, and that's been really
It's where
fun.
I've been playing the majority of my games. Like Baron Breakfast was delayed on Switch, and so the only way you can play that is on PC, and it runs great on Steam Deck.
I have
I'm looking to it.
played like 20 hours of multiverses on my Steam Deck in like a week. I'm back.
You get
in.
sucked into way too many free to play games. Way too many.
Or I just play the good ones,
Yeah.
'Cause, like,
You fall off. Some of them you fall off really quickly. Some of them you get really invested into. Like
What-
I feel like Pokemon Unite didn't last as long as I thought it would with you.
I think that's probably true, but I also played it obsessively for like 2 seasons. Like I played a lot of that game in a short amount, and I'll come back to it. Don't you get me wrong. They had that in the Pokemon
Mhm.
Presents. They're like, oh, it's year 1, it's over, new content. I was like, all right, maybe. But yeah, multiverses that's my current obsession. I'm like way in on that fucking game. I'll tell you what, Steve, too, you missed it because you were on vacation. I streamed it with AJ from Redirect on Thursday. Ended up being a really good stream. It was quiet for a bit. We had a period where like early on folks were there and like we had like a bit of a lull, and then we got raided like right at the end, got a bunch of new followers and everything. Super
Nice.
awesome. Really, really great. But AJ and I were just bodying kids. We were fucking people up. I'm getting fucking good at that game, Steve. I am.
Are you on AJ's level though? Because like that was my issue when I played Smash with AJ. It was ridiculous.
Here's my thing. If it was a 1v1 situation, you probably would take me out. He does have more experience than I do in the genre for sure. But when we were, the game is like the base mode is duos, right? And when we were a team,
Nice.
I was keeping up. I was often getting as many kills as he was, and I was contributing just as much of the team's success as he was. And I'm fucking, like the spikes and stuff where like people will jump off the level and then knock. I'm getting good at that, Steve. Like I'm about to go pro over here. AJ and I we're gonna take the multiverses world by storm. I think. So you better watch out.
Do it.
Catch-
I'm looking forward to you taking part in your first championship.
Catch me at Evo next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those have been a lot of fun for sure. One that you added to the list, I'm surprised we didn't have more from One More Thing. Maybe we'll come up with a couple now.
Well, I figured we're going to talk about them on One More Thing, and we're also probably going to talk about Nintendo Noise on Nintendo Noise,
That's
because there's no Nintendo Noise episodes here.
But
I absolutely adored the candy
the
tier
candy
list
tier
episode.
list. The
Oh
one,
my god, it was so long, but I'm glad we agreed on the Reese's Cups being in its own tier.
That's right.
And like it's my new favorite candy bar. I found my new favorite candy bar in the Reese's wafers, or whatever they're
Sticks.
called. What are they called?
Reese's
Sticks.
Sticks. Number
So
one
good.
candy. Double S tier.
Really are.
So good. The one thing about that bummed me out was that Scrubicious from the community sent me a box of European candy so I could try some of these candies, and they never showed up. They never made it.
There is something wrong with the PO box. I think you need to call the post office, because my dad sent something there as well, and it never made it.
What?
Yeah.
Did he track it?
I have no idea, but he told me on holiday. He was like, "Oh yeah, I've sent some stuff to the PO box, and Pete never mentioned it." I was like, "When did you send it?" He was like, "Last year." I was like, "Oh."
Okay, well, first of all, when you send something to P.O. Box, you got to tell me so I can look out for it. Because Zayd sent me a collector's edition of a video game, and it made it here just fine. So
I don't know if it's like blocking stuff from Europe or whatever. Like,
We'll have to figure that out.
Only regionally.
But yeah, if you're sending stuff to the P.O. Box, definitely tell me so I can go check it out. And we got to figure that out. But I also think that you need to do tracking so that you can follow where it goes, because otherwise it gets lost, and then they're like, I don't know, sorry.
Yeah, I was talking to Screwvicious. I think he's going to send me some of the European candy, so um, it will probably make it here
Yeah, I would think
rather
so.
than it going to the US. So, well, we'll hopefully revisit the candy tier.
People
I
are
think we'll
out here
probably do that on
stealing
a stream.
my PO box packages. This is bullshit. We gotta talk.
Someone had a great time with some Noppers bars because I found out that's what they were that he sent you.
Fuck. Damn it.
Yeah.
Well, all right, we'll have to figure this out. We gotta figure this out. But I think for me, the last one on the list is definitely the number one for me, at least in terms of like emotional reaction, was the first episode. You know, like we talked about it a little bit earlier. I was nervous. You know, I was nervous to launch. I was nervous to feel like we were going to be like starting at square one again, and that, you know, we would lose people, or that, you know, people would feel upset about, you know, us kind of like, you know, sunsetting the Loot Pots brand and everything and whatever. And I was just totally overwhelmed by the reaction from the community and how many of you, you know, showed up and, you know, went and became a Patreon supporter before we even put an episode out. And, you know, just the reaction was so much more than we could have hoped for. And yeah, the support has been really, really amazing. And definitely something that's not lost on me.
Yeah, it was awesome, and I've also got to say, Pete is really annoying when he's anxious about launching something new because he will constantly like be Mr. Doom and Gloom as to whether it's gonna work out okay.
Thank you so much, business partner. He's really annoying when he's worried about something. You son of a bitch.
No, I remember it was like, yeah, but is the website gonna go live? Is it gonna be okay? Is this gonna happen? Are we gonna get all this done? Blah blah blah. And it was like all worked out perfectly fine. It was like seamless. It was great.
Seamless. Seamless is the word you're
The
going to use.
website going live was the website going live and stuff like that was seamless.
Yeah, but do you not remember the earlier part of this conversation where we talked about how we worked on this for 6 months, and then the week we were going live, we were still scrambling to get things done, and you were going on vacation?
No. We didn't scramble at all that week. We had it all lined up and prepped and ready, and it was like literally one click and it went live. In fact, I think the website was up already. It was just no one knew about it.
Yeah.
No one had a clue.
It was up for like a week or two, I think, before.
We just like published it, and just like because the Twitter account existed as well, and neither of us followed it because we didn't want people to find it.
Yeah.
So it was just there, and it didn't follow anyone. It had no one, and then we just like followed it and tweeted out and had like a big thread of everything we were doing. It was really fun to see everyone like share it and find out about it for the first time. It was awesome.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. I mean, I'll admit it. I was worried, but it worked out. You weren't. You were very confident.
No, I wasn't worried at all because we'd been doing the podcast at that point for 2 years, and it was, you know, it was like a well-oiled machine. You go back and listen to, if you want to listen to us fumble around and create a really terribly sounding or like bad podcast, go listen to episode 1 of the podcast, because we had 2 years of working together, getting the chemistry together, and like honing it all in before we did FlipScreen. And so it was a case of us just like easing into something fresh and new. And yeah, there were like some segments and some new changes and things like that, and we've obviously adjusted the show throughout the year. Like we've got a new segment start screen that's made an appearance. We added the question block in that we didn't have because it was something else back in the podcast days. But it was nice. It was good. I think it was seamless. Really, that would be the word I would use. Seamless.
Okay. I have a slightly different recollection of those events, but you know, it all worked out. So if you want to call it seamless, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, like
you were right.
Like we managed to get like 2 RSS feeds up, 2 podcasts launched, rebrand a YouTube channel, rebrand 3 podcasts, rebrand a Discord, get a new Twitch channel up, and get 2 affiliate, and have the website all launched within like a week. Like, that is pretty seamless.
Yeah, you're right, but it took 6 months of work to do that, is my point.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it takes work and effort, but like the launch went well.
It did. It went really well. It was just the week or two before it went well that I was like, oh fuck, like what are we gonna do? And if you remember, we pushed back the launch date like 3 times. We delayed the launch multiple months because we were like, oh, we'll launch in March, and then we're like, no, we won't.
I do remember that. I do remember that. There were other reasons that we can't talk about as to why a lot of it got delayed.
Yeah, that's true. Wasn't all necessarily because we were working to get things together. But yeah, it's hindsight's 2020, right? For sure. But yeah, you were right. You were definitely right. It was the right move. It was the right time, and you had wanted to do it for a while, and I was like a little bit like trepidatious about it. And yeah, you definitely pushed to make it happen. So good on you, bud. Yeah. All right. So before we get out of here, we do have a couple comments from folks in the community that I wanted to jump into. So let's get into this first one. This one comes from Mr. Zaid Ida, one of our Patreon producers, who wrote in and said, playing Shenmue, I asked for memorable highlights, favorite moments, all that kind of stuff. That's the context of these. Zaid said, playing Shenmue on stream has got to be a highlight. I don't think I've laughed that hard in a long time. I wanted to say you guys have been doing an awesome job. This platform and its community members have been there for me at the best and worst of times. I guess if there's anything I gotta add, it's thank you for being such a big part of my life each and every week. Can't wait to see what you guys do next. P.S. Pete still hasn't opened up that collector's edition? Well, you'll just have to come to the stream tomorrow because I'm gonna pop it open. It's happening. Live on camera. Yeah. Gonna get the sky cam and everything. It's gonna be great. So make sure you tune in.
Yeah, Shenmue was a real fun. Shenmue was a real fun game to stream. I need to stream Shenmue 2 at some point. But me and Zaid will be back soon.
That one. Well, that's Judgment though, right?
We'll be back with Judgment, but then after Judgment, I'm gonna get back to Shenmue 2.
But you played that with? Didn't you play that with Ray?
I played that with Ray. I'm back with Ray this Wednesday. Actually, we're gonna be streaming his game. Captain and the Kids.
You gonna finish Earthbound or what?
No, I'm probably not gonna finish Earthbound. I don't think. Wow. We'll see. Wow. We'll see what happens.
All right.
Yeah, people weren't massively into it. I don't think.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I there was that one moment from the Shenmue stream where you the guy kicked you and
the girders, that crazy guy at the end.
You were just cracking up. I think that's one of I watch that clip every once in a while because it's so fucking funny. But yeah,
the other thing from those streams, that was the time the Burger King juice started.
Oh, the burger juice. Holy shit. I forgot about that.
Juice. Yeah.
That was nasty. That was the worst. That's the worst thing that's ever happened in this community. That is not a highlight. That's a low light. But
I love that juice. It's great.
No.
Finding those 3 jars, and then I think there was a 4 jar.
There was a time where it was 4 or 5 jars and we all fucking lost it.
We've never got back to it.
Nastiest fucking thing. But yeah, thank you so much for the kind words, Zaid, and thank you for all the support since years ago, way back in the Loot Pots days. You've been a ride or die, so thank you so much for all the support, buddy, and thank you for that collector's edition. I'm excited to finally open it. All right, so this next one comes from Asobi, and he sent a little video that I'm gonna pull up in just a second here, which if you are an old listener, you've probably seen before.
Oh, sometimes.
Wait! No, shut up. Okay, there we go. Here, let me resize this sucker. Alrighty. So yeah, this is a video that Asobi made years ago, and I still think it's one of the funniest things that someone's ever made for me or on my behalf.
But sometimes more unexpected sounds grab our attention.
What?
Like this desert rain frog.
Internet.
Squeaking viral sensation.
What's up, Internet? What's up? What's up, Internet?
11 million hits and counting.
What?
It sounds like a dog toy.
11 million hits and counting. Actually, that's what they say about FlipScreen all the time.
Is the sonorous war cry of a very angry frog.
I'm a very angry frog. That makes sense. What? That's great stuff. Yeah, I very much appreciate it, Asobi. Thank you. I still think that's hilarious. And Asobi wrote in and said, I'll just have to repeat what Zaid said, basically. It's been an amazing year with you guys, and I have never been this invested in a community like this. Thank you to Pete, Steve, and Chewy, and of course, all of the guests for doing all the shows, streams, etc. It's been a wild ride, and I'm sure it's going to just keep getting better from here. Also, a big shout out to all the awesome people here on the Discord. As for my favorite moments, while it's hard to pick a specific one, I feel like the bigger discussions on games, consoles, and the likes here on the Discord have always been such a cool thing. Also, Steve getting into Elden Ring is a big one. You're muted.
Elden Ring was fun, and I always loved the fact that the like conversation continues over on Discord. Like we will do the episodes on like retro, like what is retro, or has the next gen even began at this point, like assessing whether like the PS5 and the Series X have really lived up to what they had promised. And like people will carry on the conversation over in Discord and often don't agree with us, which I think is great. And like we get other people's perspectives and things. Like I remember the Nintendo Noise episode, which we're going to get back to, with Mango's take on Splatoon and his argument for it being a staple franchise.
Yeah, we're saving that for a Splatoon centric episode. We're gonna dig into those comments because they were fun. Yeah, and I love that about our community. I think that's something that I really, really treasure. Is that like we do keep the conversation rolling, and that like we've created we've cultivated an environment, I think, in the Discord and in the community in general of like it's a place that welcomes respectful debate, right? Because like we all disagree all the time. And we often will get in the weeds and people will argue about stuff, but like it's never toxic, right? Like it's never tense. It's always coming from a place of like we all love games and and like we all love the community and just like want to have fun and share this hobby together. And like I love that it is such a positive space. And like I always say in the plugs that the goal is for it to be a safe and inclusive place for you to just come and talk video games, right? Whoever you are, whatever, wherever you come from in the world, right? And like that's so cool too, right? I think that's something that I often take for granted, I think even, is like it's so cool that our audience is international and like people all over the world, right? And like, obviously we talk about how you and I became friends through this podcast, but I think it's so neat that like because of our podcast, there are folks who live here in the States and abroad in Europe that would never have known each other, never talked, never interacted before. And like, there've been friendships created through the community and all that stuff. And like, I think that's such a positive thing. And that's something that, I look around the broader, gaming space and it's not always like that. It's not always a positive space. It's not always a place that's safe for everybody or welcoming for everybody. And it means a lot to me that that our community is that way and that, we've never had a problem with that shit. And whenever people have been jerks, we've kind of excommunicated them very quickly of like, yeah, this isn't the place for that. Like, bye, So I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And I very much appreciate the ongoing dialogue that we're kind of all always having over there on the Discord. And it's something that it often brightens my day, and it makes it easier, I think, in the space between episodes, So yeah, that's something I really, really do appreciate. Thanks for writing in, Asobi. Thanks for being a real one. And again, for being an OG producer. All right, so this next one comes from Navalis, who said the discussion about kettles. It was on the bonus After Dark show, I believe. For some reason, that episode has always stuck with me. By the way, kettles are amazing. I think this was actually, this was an After Dark episode back.
One of the very last After Dark episodes with DJ, wasn't it?
Yeah, where, before he left.
I bought you both a kettle.
Yep, I still have it.
You still use it?
Yeah, I use it every day.
Good. You finally seen the light. It's the best.
Yeah, I remember you called us
so much more efficient.
You called us pioneers. You're like, what are you pioneers over there? You're heating up your tea on an open flame. That was a good one. Yeah, and like that's something that I think is cool too. Is like, the legacy that like we have does extend beyond this year. And it's again, it really means a lot to me that so many of you have been supporting us for so long and came along and made the jump with us here. Because the channel and the show and the community wouldn't be what it is without you. That Doc guy wrote it and said, what I remember the most was putting those Joy-Cons together. That and Steve never playing Ocarina of Time. Real nice, Doc. Not the episode that we invited you on so you could come talk to us about VR. You have to just highlight our biggest failures as creators. Thank you.
I can't believe it's been a year since I played that game.
I can.
Like, genuinely. I do not like that game.
Yes, you did. You're such a liar. You didn't.
I've even played some Wind Waker on the stream, but I've not gone back and played any more Ocarina of Time. No, I didn't. I remember getting so frustrated by that stupid monster thing that was just like following me around in a circle, and it took me like an hour and a half to get that fucker in that stupid belly with that horrible child thing that I was carrying around with the nasty smile on her face.
Steve, we gotta bring that back. That's coming back this year. It's gotta happen.
Horrible.
I'm editing the first 3 episodes down so that people can catch your journey up till now, and then you get to start. But you're gonna have to replay the game and catch up to where you were.
I think I've still got the save file, so I think we'll be okay.
Okay. All right. Good.
I'm not replaying the game. That's not happening.
Oh no, you got to do it. You got to do it.
I'll get Doc to get me to that place, and I'll be like, Doc, send me the save file.
All right. And the last one here for the day comes from Trendy Brendy, who wrote in and said, I loved listening to the holiday game guide episode. I specifically remember listening to it, trying to come up with nerdy friend gift ideas while in my car, driving around late to get my vaccine booster shot. We're getting another gift guide later this year, right? Hey, asking you shall receive, Brendy. Yeah, if you dug it, if it was helpful, we will definitely do another one. Like I said, I thought that was a really fun one. So yeah, I'll definitely be down to do that again.
Yeah, I enjoyed that episode, and I'm glad it was useful for people, because you can put those kind of things out, but whether people get anything out of it or not is another thing. But hearing that you actually got some ideas from it when you were driving around in your car, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing stories like that. Like that's always something that really means a lot to me. Is like, I think it's easy sometimes to take for granted the way in which our show is a part of your life, right? Because like I think of, we sit here and we record it and we put it out, and that's that, right? But I love when you guys write in and you're like, oh, like, I think it was Christian Oliveria who a couple years ago was like training for a marathon and was like, oh, I listen to the show when I'm running and, whenever I'm practicing, or like, like I remember Chloe, who was a co-host of ours back at Loot Pots and stuff. She was a fan before she was on the show. And I remember her saying like how, she was like always listening to it like at these specific times, and it helped, get back into games and stuff. And I believe she listens to this show now. She reached out to me a while ago to say that. So if you're listening, Chloe, hey, how you doing? And I love hearing that stuff. I love hearing from y'all that like you have these specific memories tied to the show, or you can remember where you were when you listen to like X or Y episode or something like that. That really means a lot to me, and it's very, very cool to think about the way in which our show is appointment viewing for all of you, and you make it a part of your week every week. Mm-hmm. And there's so many other ways you could be spending your time. So I very much do appreciate that you choose to spend it here with us, and that, the time that we spend together is meaningful. Like that's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, you'll definitely get another holiday gift guide this year. We'll make sure to do one for you, buddy. So you just added one. We just got a last minute submission here. This one came from Andy Rads, who said Pete's cats. I love how they interrupt him.
Lucas especially is always just walking in front.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are times that I think you've cut them out, and I think it was me and Chu. It was up when your basement was flooding. You were up in the kitchen, and every 2 minutes he would like try and escape down into the basement.
Yep.
And you would like scream and chase him down, and like Sarah would come like running. It was like something out of a cartoon. It was honestly ridiculous.
Well, it's because this was when the walls were down in my basement, so he would run down the stairs and go climb inside the wall to a place where I couldn't get him, and I had to like coax him to come back out. So it was a pain in the ass whenever he would do it. So I was like, no, like shit, I gotta grab him real quick, you know.
Yeah, and then there was another time where I had never seen you so annoyed, and I think it was when you were down here again, and one of your other cats, I think, had started on him, and like they were fighting, and you like jumped off out of your seat, and you were like yelling at the cat, like you ran over and like pried them apart.
Well,
like Sarah just like casually walks down the stairs as if like, once again something's happened. Just like carries the cat upstairs.
And it's so funny because it's like you mentioned that, right? And it's like I don't yell at my cats. It's like I'm not like that's not a normal thing. But when I do, when they're fighting, that's one of the only ways to get them to stop without physically pulling them apart. Is if I yell really loud, they both freeze and they're like, what was that, right? And like they have a second where I can immediately pull one away and be like, okay, we're done, like, you know. But yeah, it's like I literally will scream at the top of my lungs to try and scare them and get them to be like, just do the cat freeze. I can try and scoop somebody. Yeah, that hasn't been as much of a problem lately. He's been upstairs, so he hasn't been walking his butt through my shot every day. But yeah, it's definitely a fun time. Real quick before we go, check the channels. Did anybody else get one in before the wire here? Because I know there were.
No, that was the last one.
That's our last one.
The last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna check my email once more and see if anybody got in here. And then let me ask you this, Steve. We're 1:15 in. What's the vibe? We gonna wrap it here, or are we gonna talk about what we played this week?
We should probably talk about what we've played next week.
Okay.
But we can talk about it now if you want to, because I've got thoughts on Stray now. I've finished it, and Bear and Breakfast, and I know you played Multiverses, but I don't mind.
Well, it's up to you. I know you. It's a long episode. I don't want to keep you too long. You know, if you want to get a couple hot takes in on these games, we can do it.
Yeah, we can.
All right, we're doing it, buddy. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it. All right. So should we wrap our conversation on Stray and maybe save the other ones, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do.
We'll do that. All right. So Stray, we've both finished it now. When we talked about it previously, about 2 weeks ago now, I guess, maybe it was last week. The general consensus was that we liked it, but we didn't love it, I think. You were a little warmer on it than I was, I think, but
I've cooled off a bit now.
there you go. I'm interested to hear about that. So I think for me, now that all's said and done, rolled credits on it, I think it sits pretty squarely at like an 8 for me. Like it's a good, not great game. And I definitely...
Which is weird, because I had a conversation with my mum about it when I was on holiday. And she's like, that's a great score in her eyes. And I'm just like, yeah, but for video games, anyone considers less than a 5, which is middle of the road. Like that's an average. Anyone considers like a 5 or less is like terrible.
My thing is, it's interesting because I think everybody thinks about it in a different way, and it's why websites have different point scales, and why there's a 100-point scale, there's a 5-point scale.
We really need our own.
We need to come up with our own.
Explain.
I think we're at the point where we should come up with that for year 2, and have like a solid review scale. But I think for me, I always think of it as a grade scale, like letter grades, right? Where it's like an 8 out of 10 is a B, right? A 7 is a C. And I think of it in that way, where it's like, if it's anything below a 6, it's shit. It's not good. And there are degrees of how bad it is, right? Something that's a 1 is like technically broken, probably doesn't play, like it's garbage, it's whatever, right? Whereas like a 5 or a 6 is maybe a technically competent game that just isn't very good or isn't very interesting or isn't very novel, right? Whatever. A 7, I would say, is a solid game. It's good. It's fine. It's, whatever, but like not anything to write home about. I'd say an 8 is a game that flirts with greatness, is good, has good ideas, maybe isn't perfectly executed, maybe it overstays its welcome, maybe it, is there's a feature I don't like, whatever, right? It's a very good game. It's like, for fans of the genre, you're going to want to play this one, right? A 9, I would say, that's great. That's above average. That's an exceptional game, an exceptional example of its genre, one that maybe appeals to a broader audience, right? Even if that's not necessarily your jam. And then 10 out of 10 is a masterpiece. It's a must try. And like, that's how I think about it, right? Because nothing's perfect. A 10 out of 10 doesn't mean it's perfect. It means, in my mind, that it's an excellent game. And it's a game that everybody should at least kick the tires on and see if it's for you, That's how I think about it.
Yeah, I always think it back to star ratings. Like, I don't know. Because I try and make it similar to movies, I think, in my head, as to what I think a good movie would be. And I think a 5 out of 10, I think, is a poor score.
Yeah. Right. Because that's half. That's 50%.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good.
But I think a scale out of 10 is probably too high. I don't know. I kind of feel like a 1 to 5 is all you really need. But you've got to go with what people understand and know. And people, out of 10, it's a bit more granular.
The thing I don't like about 5-point scales is if it's a hard 5-point scale, like you said, like it can only be 1, 2, 3, or 4 or 5 stars. I don't think that leaves enough room for discussion, because I think there's
when you add halves in, you might as well just go to the 10.
Exactly.
The ones that annoy me the most, and outlets like Game Informer did it, I don't know if they still do, it's the out of 100 and the amount of granularity you could get. They used to give things like 93.5s, and I'd be like, what the fuck does that mean?
That I don't like.
It's too much.
I like the 0.5, so it's like you can do, it's a 10-point scale, but really it's a 100-point scale, where it's 8, 8.1, 8.2, all the way up to 9, right? Like that kind of thing. I think that's what I like, because I think there's a big difference between an 8 and an 8.5. I think that's a big difference. Because to me,
Fair enough.
a low 8 is it's good, but it was teetering, right? It's closer to all right than it is to good. Or whatever, right? Whereas an 8.5, an 8.8, an 8.9, I'm okay, that to me means something, I look at an 89 and I'm like, oh, that's something to pay attention to, right? An 8, you're like, okay.
Yeah. And I guess that's Metacritic landed on that, right? The out of 100.
I like the 100-point scale. Again, I think it makes, you think of it in terms of letter grades, and I think it makes sense, right? They're tiers, and it's an A+ is different than an A-, and
we got rid of letter grades in the UK, and I still don't understand it, because I had letter grades when I passed, but now they're a 1 to 8, I think, score.
That's weird.
You can get.
That's very
It's
strange.
bizarre.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. But so on the topic of Stray, I think to me it feels more on the 8 side of that scale, and I think all of the things that I thought were going to be what I was saying last time, I think hold true, where I really like this game, but I think the novelty of it does not persist through the entirety of the game. I think by the back half of it, the last time I sat down to play it, I remember thinking, I'm ready to be done with this.
Me too. Though that's exactly how I felt, and I think I landed on a 7 because of it. There's that place you can go to before you get to the final area where you eventually end the game, and there's additional stuff you can do. It's you can go and talk to people and wrap things up, or you can just go up if you're ready. And I was like, yeah, I can't be bothered with any of that side stuff. I'm ready for this game to be done.
Yeah, and I think the game trained me that the side stuff is just not that important. No,
it's not. It wasn't, and none of it was fun. It was collecting things and finding stuff. I had a good time going around in Hong Kong and exploring it as a cat. It was fun, and the world is pretty and it's nice. The story is compelling enough, I think, for me to have wanted to see the ending, but I did not like the ending of this game. It was abrupt. It didn't tie things up how I wanted it to.
Really?
I didn't get the resolution I wanted.
That's interesting.
I
feel that a little bit.
It was it was without spoiling it too much, you get out and that's it. Like I wanted a little bit more than that, you know?
Yeah, I think that's one of the ways that this game fails the most, or fails itself the most, is that I think the story is, I think compelling enough is a fine way to put it, but I also think that, like, I think it does the worst thing of, like, telling instead of showing. Like, I think if you explain the story in bullet points, it sounds more compelling than it is when it's executed. Because
You're right about the telling instead of showing. Like when your companion just basically reels stuff off to you, and you don't ever really like it's never really explained why they are who they are. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, I think it is explained enough, but I also feel like it's just kind of like, it's explained, right? Where it's like, oh, that's what's happening. Okay. And to me, it's the difference of, like, it's the difference of, like, when I talk to you about something and I'm like, oh, like, this thing has a really cool story, and I explain it and you're like, oh, that's interesting, right? Like, and that's kind of as far as it goes. Whereas, like, I think about something like, and this is maybe not a fair comparison, but like Undertale, right? Or like, what? Put Undertale aside. That's one of my favorite games ever. The Walking Dead Season 1 from Telltale, right? Where, like, that is a game where the story and the beats of the story, like, have stuck with me, right? That story had stickiness. And I don't think that this story has stickiness. I think when I think back on this game, what I will remember it for is its mechanics and, like, the way in which
playing as a cat.
And the way in which they really committed to that, like the mocap and, like, how the traversal and like the
Even
sticky
still,
platforming, like those things are all really good.
I don't think there was enough there for me. Like the level of interactivity, like at first glance, you play it for an hour or so, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of interactivity. I can scratch this, I can do that, I can lie down, I can meow, and it's just like, okay, but what actually is there? There's not really any depth to it. It's very shallow. It's like the scratching only really was useful in one area to get someone to open a door for me. But other than that, it was just like, yeah, but it was just like, I'm not really using this. The meowing, it was useful right at the beginning of the game, and then it just like went away, and it was just like a button to spam if you were bored. It's kind of like they could have done a lot more with it, I think. And it would have been nice. I feel like they wanted to have like a photo mode when the cat's asleep, but they never really added it in. Like there's a lot I think that they could have committed to doing, and I felt like a lot of the puzzles were filler. I actually solved some of the puzzles before I even knew that they were puzzles.
I also had that happen to me more than once. Yeah.
Like I solved the puzzle of getting into the laundrette without realizing that's what I needed to do, because I never went to the door to find out that I couldn't get in there first. I was picking up items of clothing before I realized I needed to get the items of clothing. And it was, so I picked up a hat and a jacket, and I was like, what is this even for? And then I found where I needed to use it.
Yeah. I had that happen with the guy with the store in the first area, where, like, I had gotten all the items, and then it was like, oh, I need this or that. I'm like, oh, I already have it all. Cool. I think for me, though, right, like, I think the game, the problem with it is that it's too long or too short. Like, I think it's either or, right? Like, if it was half as long, I don't think you would be having those problems of, like, oh, it's, like, shallow, or it's this or that, because it's like, well, it's a bite-sized experience, and, like, what it presented was satisfying enough and didn't overstay its welcome. I think I'd feel differently about it. Or if it was a little longer and deeper, or if it was shorter overall, but the parts that we had more depth, so that there was more to interact with and explore and everything. Because I think all the ideas it presents are good. I think its artistic direction is good. I think it has the bones of a strong enough story. But I feel like every one of those things is like a little half-baked, and it just needs a little bit more. And I think it's better than it isn't. And I certainly enjoyed my time with it. But I also think it's a game that, like, I think the best case scenario for it is that it's near the bottom of my top 10 list for the year. And then I think it's a game I will not really continue to think about much beyond this moment. And that's not inherently a bad thing, right? Like, not every game can be a masterpiece, the most memorable game you've ever played. But I think the fact that for me it comes so close to being something better than it is, and it's not, is disappointing. Definitely think
I think that's where I'm with it as well.
It's lesser than the sum of its parts.
I feel like if they'd have gone with another one, maybe two areas, once you'd kind of solved the puzzle of getting out, I think I'd have been happier with it. And I was not happy with the resolution for your companion either. I felt like that was really just like, oh, okay, it's just like,
I think they kind of
is
just
that really
tie
gonna
everything
happen?
off, and it just kind of, like you said, it just kind of ends, and it's
Yeah,
like,
so it's really abrupt for me. It was just like, oh, am I done? Is that it? Like, I felt like there needed to be a little bit more, and there wasn't. And I was also contending. The reason I think mine goes down to a 7, I had those PC performance issues that I was going up against as well. I think if I had played it on PlayStation, might have been a little bit. I might
yeah.
have given it a bit of a greater score, but I feel like I still would have landed on a 7, just based on the gameplay and the story and what it was. I can look past those performance issues because they'll get patched out. And I was also playing on Steam Deck, so it's not like I was playing on the most powerful PC that I could have. So I can forgive it for those. And there's a small team. It's it's really the gameplay mechanics and the story. I think for me was what let the side down. But overall, I did have a good time with it. I don't think this is going to end up on my game of the year list unless there's very little else that I play for the rest of the year.
That's
But there's
why
a
it
lot
could.
coming up.
I don't think there's that. I don't know. I guess we'll see, right? Because like there are a lot of games coming out later this year that I think are going to be things that we pay attention to. But like, I know like we just did a segment not that long ago. We were discussing like what are the games that are coming up and like everything. And a lot of the big games that are coming up for the back half of the year are not things that appeal to you. So I wonder.
Not on Nintendo, but there is a lot on other platforms. I feel like that I am
Like a lot,
I am
though?
having a good time with, and there's games I've already played that we haven't spoken about on the show, like Bear and Breakfast, which we'll talk about. I'm having such a good time with that. I think that's going to go onto my game of the year list. Please Fix the Road is probably going to end up on there because that's a really good game. Like there's stuff that I've played that we haven't really had time to talk about in the previous weeks that I think is going to go on there. It depends how big our list is. I think we did 5 last year. If we expand that, I think maybe we could. Maybe it would make the list, but I don't think this is going to be anyone's game of the year this year.
At least not from us. I mean, that's the thing. There are a lot of people that do have that level of love for it, but I just don't quite. I don't get it. I don't get the folks that like. I think you really got to be a crazy cat person, and I say that as a person with 3 cats, and I feed cats in my backyard. I'm a crazy cat person, and it's as a video game, it's lacking a little bit. But
yeah.
So we're an hour and a half in, Steve. We moving on? We got one more game in us. What's the deal?
I don't mind. We can. I've got 20 minutes.
You got 20
until I
minutes?
gotta
All
go.
right, Steve. Let's talk about it.
We can go.
Let's talk about it. I want to talk about Multiverses then. Because
Okay.
I said I would talk about it on Nintendo Noise this week. So let's talk about it just a little bit. This game slaps, Steve. It slaps. It really slaps, and I really like it. It is very much a Smash clone in most ways, but there are a lot of things about it that I think are unique ideas that make it stand out and give it its own kind of identity. I feel like the focus on like 2v2 is something that's very interesting. There's definitely a level of care put into it that I think was like not present in like Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl that everybody played for like a day and then moved on from, right? Where it's like all the characters are fully voice acted. There are like original lines of dialogue so that characters that have never met before have things to say to each other, right? Like for example, right? Like the Iron Giant, if you've seen the Iron Giant, right? One of the major beats of that movie is that the Iron Giant really idolizes Superman, and he wants to be a good guy like Superman. So Superman.
Get Vin Diesel back to do the audio.
I don't know. I haven't played as the Iron Giant, so I haven't heard enough of his dialogue. I'll have to report back on that one. But they did get a lot of the original voice actors. Like the voice actors for like Finn and Jake from Adventure Time are both the original ones. They have the original voice actress for Garnet from Steven Universe. So like a lot of them are the folks you know for those voices. But like Superman will like make a comment to the Iron Giant where he's like, "Oh, I'll like," he's like, "We should hang out and I'll teach you how to be Superman or whatever," and like shit like that, you know. Or like he has a line with like Steven Universe where he's like, "Oh, like if you like keep up the good work, like you'll be a great hero someday, Steven." Like little things like that, you know. And it's like it's interesting to see the characters have like genuine interactions like that. The levels are really well designed. They have like these like nice orchestral arrangements of like the theme songs for the TV shows and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun.
And this is it's all Warner Brothers stuff, right?
It's all it's technically called Warner Brothers Multiverses, and yeah, it's
Okay.
anything that they own, which is everything, you know, that Disney doesn't own. So it's like we got the Looney Tunes, we got the DC superheroes, you've got Cartoon Network stuff, Adult Swim stuff is coming at some point soon. So sky's kind of the limit. You know, they can really do whatever. And like LeBron James is a character in this game, so they're not concerned about not being wacky, which is exciting, I think.
Okay.
And it's free to play, and it's on every platform except for Switch. It is cross-play. It's cross-progression, which has been perfect for me because if I want to play it on my couch while I'm like chilling in the living room, I've been playing it on my Xbox. And whenever I want to play it in bed or if I'm like watching TV or something, I'm playing it on Steam Deck. It was the #1 most played game on Steam Deck the last 2 weeks. It's the #1 most played fighting game in the world right now. It's really, truly, I think, exceeding all expectations. Because I know I didn't have extremely high hopes for this game. I did not think it was going to be anything to write home about. I figured it would be something I would try and I would, you know, either give it a shot once and then kind of and move on from it, or that I just wouldn't even check it out. And I downloaded it on a whim, and I've put 20, 30 hours into it since then. It's the only thing I'm playing besides Xenoblade, and it's competing for a lot of my attention. And I've been having a blast with it. Like I'm actively working to get good at it, and I'm feeling myself improve in a way that I never really have with a fighting game. And I'm digging it. And like the online experience is really good. It very much feels like what if Smash had, you know, more modern online offerings where it's super easy to party up. And, you know, like I was playing with AJ for a couple hours the other night. I was playing with my buddy Jack. I'm going to go play with him after this. And you get a bonus for partying up with somebody. So if you play with a friend, you get like a 30% increase of like the gold, which is the free currency you unlock for playing. And then if you're doing the season pass, you get an additional season pass bonus. So it's like easier to complete the season pass if you're playing with a friend. And so far, I think they're doing the free-to-play thing just right. Like, I think the model is working for them, where, like, the only things that you can pay for with real money are to unlock new characters or to get cosmetic skins. So it's definitely not feeling like a pay-to-win thing. They've got a pretty generous free character rotation where there's 4 characters who are free at a time, and they're free for, like, a week or 2. Or 2 weeks, I think it is.
Oh, that's interesting. So you can't like have a favorite unless you buy it.
Yes.
So if I always wanted to play as Superman,
you'd have to unlock
I couldn't unless I bought him.
And if you play offline, everything's unlocked. So if you play locally with other people, you can just use the full roster and there's no problem.
That's great.
But if you want to play online, you do need to unlock the characters. Every character costs 700 of the in-game currency, which is I think like around like $5 or something like that.
Okay. And can you unlock them naturally?
Yes.
Like if I get a season pass, I get to keep them then?
You won't unlock characters with the season pass. The season pass is all tied to cosmetics, and the cosmetics are, I believe, exclusive to the season pass, which is like kind of their incentive is like, oh, if you want this rare skin for this character you play, like you got to do the season pass. And the season pass was like $3 or $2 or $3. It was pretty cheap. And for the characters, you can unlock them with gold, which is the regular currency you unlock just from playing the game. And they give you a ton up front. Like I had enough to buy 2 or 3 characters just from like completing the, hey, you joined the game, like do a bunch of these, like change your icon, like play as a mage, play as a brawler, play as an assassin. And like they give you a bunch of bonuses for that. So you unlock a bunch of currency right away. So you can easily pick up 1 or 2 characters out the gate. I think I own like 4 or 5 characters and I haven't spent any money on them. So it's pretty good. Yeah, if you're playing the game regularly, you're going to have enough currency to unlock characters. And they do have a Founders Pass that you can get. It's a $40, a $50, and a $99 one. And the $50 and $99 ones include vouchers for characters. I think it's like 20 and like 40 or something like that. So like if you get one of those, you'll unlock every character right out the gate, and you'll also be able to get the next, 10 or so characters that come out for free. So, or free, quote unquote. So I think they're doing it right. I think they're doing the free to play thing right. I think they are approaching the game in a way that's smart and that is going to appeal to the right people. And I think that's why it's finding an audience, right? Like it's doing the Fortnite thing really well of like, you can play this on anything and it's super easy to like be like, oh, Steve, like I'm loving this game. Come try it with me. Go download it for free on whatever platform you want to play it on. Let's party up and we'll play together. And like you can be doing that in a matter of seconds. And on Steam Deck especially, it's insane how well it works considering it's unverified. But also, you can use the native Steam chat. And like I was doing that with my buddy the other night when we were playing, where I just popped on my headphones. Literally, he called me on Steam. And within 2 seconds, we were partied up, we were in a chat, and we were in queue. And because there's so many people playing, the queue times in this game are nuts. They're like 30 seconds max.
Nice. That's what you want.
So easy to just keep jumping into the next game.
I know, like issues because I know with Smash, it's like lockstepped, right? So you would always have the issue where it's like whoever had the worst connection would like drag down the whole game, and you'd end up with those moments where it's like freezed and like paused, and you just basically were stopped from playing for a moment.
So your mileage will vary on that. I know when I was playing with AJ, he was lamenting that he likes the Smash situation better because the way that Smash handles it is that it does freeze the game basically until everybody catches up and then you keep going. Mm-hmm. This doesn't do that. It handles lag the way that most games handle lag, where if you're lagging out, like everybody else is still moving and you're
it's basically tough, yeah,
and it's trying to predict what you would be doing to fill in the gap. So, like if you've got good internet, it shouldn't be a problem. I have experienced slowdown less than 5 times, I'll say, in the 20, 30, maybe now 40 hours I've played the game.
Okay, how many matches would you say that you've played then?
A couple hundred.
Okay, so a couple hundred, you got 5, so it's like a 2% possibility.
Yeah, and I know
slowdown.
AJ said he was playing with a friend one day and they experienced it a lot, and I don't know if maybe one of them had a bad connection or if maybe it was like maybe they're working on the servers that day, because it is in beta, and I've noticed things where like there was a texture pop-in issue the last week or so where like anything that had text on it was blurry, right? So like LeBron James, for example, is wearing a basketball jersey that says Toon Squad on it, and like you couldn't read what was on his shirt, There's like things like that where like there are errors. It is in early access still. It's not a 1.0 by any means yet. So, I think like if you do experience those problems, right, or if you're experiencing problems that I didn't, take it with a grain of salt. It's a new game. It's still, it's still getting hammered out, right? But I think for a game that is in early access, that is right now should be the worst that it ever is really
pretty polished already. Yeah.
It's really polished already, I would think, or I would say. And I think it only has a place to improve from here. And I honestly think it is a real legitimate competitor to Smash Brothers in the like party platform fighter space, which I don't really think there's ever been a legit competitor to Smash Brothers. And the fact that this is a game that Smash Pros collaborated with the team to work on it, the Smash community seems to be getting behind it. It just had its debut at EVO. I think it's a game that has legs, and I think it's gonna be one that sticks around, especially if they have a good regular output of characters where they're constantly bringing new content to the game. I think the only place is up from here, frankly, which is exciting because I'm into it. Like this is the most I think I've ever engaged with the fighting game, except for like ARMS, where I'm playing it every day. I'm actively trying to get better. I'm trying to practice with my main. I'm trying to learn how to take the most advantage of my kit, and I've been doing a lot of the like jumping off the level and trying to spike people or trying to kill them when they only have like a little bit of damage, and like being like, oh, you're near the top of the map, I can use this attack to exploit that and throw you up and kill you. And like I've been getting really aggressive with that in a way that I never felt confident enough in Smash. Like I've never had that ability, and like it's clicking for me in this game for some reason. So I'm out here. Like, so, if you're playing Multiverses, definitely add me. Loud Pete, you'll find me. And if you're not, and you're interested in trying it out at all, I would just implore you to download it and give it a go. It's free, right? Like,
And is it on all platforms yet, or if it's early access? I presume it's not on PlayStation
it's
yet?
not on Switch. It is on PlayStation. It's on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. PlayStation don't usually allow early access games. That's good to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a look. It's the first outing from a new studio called Player First Games, which looks like serious veterans of the industry. You know, the two founders came from Riot. The principal developer worked on League of Legends. Their audio director came from Jedi Fallen Order. There's a lot. There's like a real dream team, and you can see the kind of legacy. Like the system designer worked at Sledgehammer Games on Call of Duty for a very long time, by the looks of it.
And like you can see that pedigree. I think. Like I believe I compared it to League of Legends at some point on content, but if not, I'm doing it right now. They handle the free to play thing just the same way that League does, and I think that's the perfect way to do it.
Awesome. I'm glad you're having a good time with it. It's probably not for me.
It's probably not for you, but I know that's not really your jam. But
I don't really like fighting games, and I've got no kind of allegiance with any Warner Brothers properties other than like Scooby-Doo. If they had Scooby-Doo, maybe
he's in it. Well, he's not in it, but Shaggy and Velma are, and you know Scooby's on the way. So
yeah,
I'll say this: I think it's worth trying. Like, I think if you were down, especially like,
I'll give it a go because it's free. If I'm going to stream it, then I'll check it out.
And like, if we played together, I think you might still have fun, right? Where it's like,
I did when I played Pokemon Unite. I had fun on that stream, even though we were getting absolutely destroyed that time. It just wasn't something I was like persisting with myself and I feel like fighting games, if you're gonna get good at them, it's one of those things you got to commit to and you got to keep going back to and playing over and over again.
It's got to be. A regular part of your digest, which for me, that's been the case lately. So I don't know, man. We'll see. Like you said, I might burn out on it, and it might be a thing where I put it on my top 10 list and then I'm not playing it by next year. But I don't know. Like it's striking a chord with me, and I think if they keep putting stuff out, if they keep iterating, it might be one that does stick around for me. And like I know that I'm a lot more invested in playing it than I ever was in playing Smash online. So I think that alone, as somebody who's a big Smash fan, that's a big W for them. And I think a lot of people are going to feel that way because it's easy. It's just easy. It's easy to get in and enjoy it right away. So I am very much in on Multiverses, and I did not think I would be, but it is 100%. I'll say this on my short list for Game of the Year. If we do a top 5 for Game of the Year, it will be on that list. I would be shocked if it wasn't.
Interesting. Well, we'll see. I guess. I mean, anything could knock it off because I know it's a very short list at the moment for contenders for Game of the Year. The problem is there's a lot coming up. Because I would imagine 2 of the games on your list will be God of War and Horizon already, so they take up 2 slots.
And it's like at least one Pokemon game is probably going to end up on that list, whether it's Arceus or Scarlet Violet.
So you're only left with two possibilities going into the other 2 slots, and it could easily be something else that surprises you and you enjoy more than Multiverse.
And I think Xenoblade's on that list too. So it's don't get me wrong, it's crowded, but tell you what, Steve, like I said, I put in like
Digimon. What about Digimon Survive?
I haven't started it yet, can't say. But I've put a gross amount of time into this game.
It sounds like it. 40 hours in a week or something.
Yeah.
I go away on holiday. I swear, every time I go away on holiday, you get addicted to a new multiplayer game. I think I had a break, and like you were big into Pokemon Unite, and then you like went on to Halo for a while. I just should not leave you alone with multiplayer games.
You can't. All right. So thank you guys for joining us here on another episode of the FlipScreen Games podcast. Thank you for a wonderful, memorable year 1 here at FlipScreen Games. We really, truly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the community. Thank you for being a Patreon supporter. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming to the streams. Thank you for being on the Discord. Wherever you come, however you engage, however you're a part of what we do here at FlipScreen Games. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for spending your time with us, for caring about us, for making us a part of your lives the way that we've made this a part of ours. It truly, truly means the world to me, and I look forward to the next 50.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful time, and thanks everyone who supported us, whether that's just listening to the show or coming over to the Patreon and supporting us in that way in Discord. Everyone that sent questions in over the last year, just keep them coming.
All our
It's been
guests.
yeah, all of the guests. I mean, there's so many people that we just could not do this without everyone. Like I said at the top of the show, it's really humbling to see people tune in every week and listen, and you know we're gonna keep doing it if people keep listening. So expect a lot more from us. That's all I will say. And don't forget to tune in to the live stream because there's some special surprises that will be.
Speaking of expecting more from us, make sure you tune
Yeah.
in for that live stream. And I'll say this: there will be some announcements. If you don't catch the live stream, we will put a VOD up, and you'll be able to catch the announcements there as well. So if you can't tune in, no big deal. I know a lot of for you European folks, it's late. Keep your eye on the YouTube channel. There will be a video up with some news on Tuesday. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you catch all that stuff because I'm pretty excited about some of the stuff we got in the works, and I hope you will be too. So, before we jump, remember, FlipScreen.games, that's the links. That's where you can find all our stuff. Join the Discord. Come tune in for the Twitch stream tomorrow. However you choose to engage, we appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And we'll catch you next... for the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. And we'll see you next week for another episode of FlipScreen Games Podcast, everybody. Take it easy. And now the outro's playing. I hope this is the last week I don't have the music. Every time I throw to Steve, he doesn't sing. He doesn't sing. He doesn't sing.
No, I don't sing. I don't sing. I gotta leave it to you and your sweet voice.
Ooh.